Hey YouTube, just as I finished shooting my top teams video for the Great League, PvPoke messaged me and said he was going to put the new teams out after we get the stat updates tomorrow, but then he dropped a screenshot of what it will look like. So we have a new number one, and it's an old number one. Azumarill with Bubble. Not surprising. Azumarill had always... So we're going to just go over these rankings here and go over why they are the way they are. And my first thoughts and impressions on them and what this means moving forward. So Azumarill is number one. The Bubble, they nerfed... Azumarill is number one on this ranking list for 6 or 7 seasons straight, and then they nerfed Bubble. And then there's like Treven and other stuff came in, so that's why it dropped. But it's back at number one. The Bubble buff, plus having just a lot of other Pokemon that it can beat in the top meta, like Carbink and Medicham, as you see, is not dropped far. And Gligar, right, hitting super effective with Bubble and that. Not surprising that it has jumped up so much. It just has bulk. It has a good moveset. Now a buff moveset, so and good against a lot of the main meta. Because there's just a lot of water in the main meta too, which you resist a lot of their moves. So that is why it is bumped to number one. I mentioned in my video the other day, I think Carbink, not surprising, is at number two. It doesn't have a ton of checks, and they haven't introduced enough new checks this season to make up for its super bulk and that moveset. So not surprising, Carbink's number two. Medi, like I said, would not drop outside of the top 5, and it did not. Dynamic Punch was a better move than Psychic anyway. Psychic just gave you the coverage move. Dynamic Punch is still such a strong move on Medi. Medi still has bulk, it still has counter, and it still has Ice Punch for coverage. So not surprising that Medi's at number 3. You will, if you watch my moveset video yesterday, I said there's different combinations you can use. Power Punch, Ice Punch, Dynamic Punch, Ice Punch counter, or Ice Punch Psychic. So it just depends how you want to use that moveset. Then the first thing that I noticed was double water flyer, Mantine Pelipper. And this one's interesting to me. I feel like this is... I'm not sold on this. I'm not sold on Mantine number 4. I understand Mantine's bulky. I understand it has the wing attack air lace buff. And it's just a hard answer for generally like Swamperts, and that's something sort of like super hard answer it is for like just waters in general. But again, you're so limited against steals, wing attack, air lace, but you have nothing to throw against steals. You are weak to like Carbink, which is be able to throw rock at you. Even in the Azumarill matchup, you're probably going to beat Azumarill with a wing attack, air lace, but like that can chip you a bunch. I'm not sold on Mantine at number 4. Pelipper number 5 is also one of those very sort of bait dependent, very spammy if you've played with it or have gone against it, very spammy with those weather balls, but kind of bait dependent, very glassy. That's another one where it's like, yes, it'll be used, yes, it's strong, but top 5, that's kind of surprising. Registeel, Swampert have not changed. Like I said, they wouldn't. I think with potentially less Medis and more Azumarill's Carbink, I think Registeel is actually an uptick of where it is, and less A Sandslash is potentially. Although you can one shot with Focus Blast A Sandslash. Swampert at 7, same thing. There's not like an influx of new grass Pokemon or other stuff, so it's not surprising it's still top ranked there. Toxapex at 8, I mentioned multiple times Toxapex is going to increase because you're going to see more Azumarills, so you hit super effective with Poison Jabs. Carbinks, you do neutral with Poison Jabs, super effective with Brine. Medi's not going to be running Psychic as much, and if it does, it's not super effective anymore. Like, I mean, it's still super effective, but not as super effective. You're going to have all these other water Pokemon, like Pelipper and Mantine, that they have to throw, like just Aerial Ace and Hurricane, and you can potentially just outbulk with Poison Jab and Sludge. And then there's a bunch of other Pokemon. So it's still strong. Mandibuzz is another one of those where it's like, I understand the principles of it. It is strong. It's bulky. But with Azumarill now taking number 1, less Medis, which is one of your best options, Carbink, which is going to wall you, Registeel, which is still going to destroy you. Like, I'm surprised. I'm really surprised Mandibuzz is that high. Again, a strong Pokemon, but kind of surprised it's that high. Gligar, Lickitung, Clodsire, Swampert. I said these will all be basically right where they were. Like, Lickitung got a slight downgrade. Gligar slight downgrade, Clodsire slight downgrade, but all in the top 20. Not surprising given their just the combo of their bulk and move stats with those. Vigoroth up to 15. I said Vigoroth was ranked like 28, 20, 25 before, and I said with Rockside it's an upgrade, so it's probably going to jump to the top 20. There it is. Golbat at 16. Golbat is another one of those. I think Golbat is getting a buff because Poison is generally getting a buff because Azumarill is now in the top, right? Because outside of Azumarill, it still has kind of, maybe there's like, what I think is happening here is there's not a ton of pure steals anymore because there's a lot of things that are now beating steel, as we're going to see down here in the 17-20 range, right? So you have Registeel, which kind of fell off last season because Gligar, you can't really hit anything against Gligar. You now have Clodsire, which is the same situation, a poison ground. You can't really throw anything at that. So between those two and now Poliwrath with Icy Wind and Whiscash now with Scald, and Talonflame now in the top 20 rank because of that Incinerate Fly. Notice the Fly instead of Brave Bird. These are all Pokemon that are going to just deal with steals very, very easily. So there's not a ton of, outside of Registeel, which I still think is very quite strong, there's not a ton of steals running around. So that's probably why in the rankings, Mantine has jumped up, Pelipper has jumped up, Mandibuzz has jumped, and Golbat has jumped to a certain extent because there is just not that like main flyer check, and there's not a ton of electric Pokemon either, right? Because there's too many Glygars and Clodsires with that ground neutralizing electric. So with less electric and less steel, something like Golbat does have a lot more play. And that's probably why it's in the top there. And then Talonflame, not surprising with the buff, is in the top there, but it's running Fly. Because I mentioned in my video yesterday, Fly versus Brave Bird, the difference between the strengths of being able to stand longer with Fly versus just using it as a nuke and bailing with Brave Bird, but to each their own how you want to use that. They also put out 21 to 40. So again, Lantern, there's your Lantern, buffed up, superior. I said was going to basically kind of stay around its range because there's a lot more Mud Boys out there. It has a lot more play. There's your first Dragon and Guzzlord. I think Dragons are underrated this season. But for the most part, going down here, nothing too new. Well, until 32, which I will go over in 1 second. There's nothing too new on this list. Mud Boys, Cressas, Safe Swap, more Pidgeot, Lurantos was always there, Bastion was always there, Scrafty was always there. Skarmory with Steel Wing up to 32. I'm not surprised given how much Steel Wing picks up matchups in this. Seeing Skarmory jump from like irrelevant 200 something to a top to 32 is, I was gonna say surprising, but it's not surprising. Steel Wing is such a huge upgrade for it, so definitely worth testing that out if you haven't used it. There's a couple more. So there is your Abomasnow buff with still running Weather Ball. Interesting. Abomasnow is still running Weather Ball. I would probably run it with Icy Wind, but you can run it with Weather Ball. It's kind of similar to how it plays overall. Wait, Icy Wind or what did we get here? I'm pretty sure it was Icy Wind. We got, yeah, Icy Wind on Abomasnow. And just so you know the difference in stats, so Icy Wind is a 45 energy for 60 damage, but it lowers the opponent's attack. While Weather Ball is a 35 energy for 55 damage. So better damage per energy with the Weather Ball, but the trade-off is the 100% lowering your opponent's attack. So it just depends how you want to play it. I could see why it stays Weather Ball, but it's still just there. Wiggly with the Icy Wind. I said Wigglytuff will rise. I said you cannot really have a Charm user in top 20, so that is why it is there. Not surprising that it jumped all the way to 36, being able to lower your opponent's attack and then charm the rest. And then a couple more dragons, Dragonite and Arctibax. I'm not surprised with that. And then Jellicent just running the normal set, which got that. So that is the top 40 analysis. It is not surprising overall. I think I called a few things. I said I knew Azumarill would rise. I'm surprised it rise to number 1, but I said I thought Carbink would be number 1. I said Medicham would not drop outside of the top like 5 to 10, so not surprised there. A little surprised about Mantine Pelipper, but like I said, could be because there's not a ton of electric and steel anymore, except for Registeel. Toxapex Rising is not surprising. Gligar, Lickitung, Glossire, all those staying around is makes sense to me. And then the rise of Talonflame at 20, and then Lantern over here at 20, 20 whatever, 23, 24, what it was it, 23. All this should not be surprising for the meta. So that's what we're looking at going forward. Let's look at some teams using these Pokemon that we know are getting buffed, or new moves, which I think leads to a buff. So timestamps below if you want to go after this specific Pokemon. We're gonna start with Talonflame because I think that's on everyone's mind right now. Talonflame with the Incinerate buff is looking real nice. Like just to put it in perspective for those of you who don't understand how big this buff is, it now becomes the sort of best fast move in terms of damage and energy combo in the game. You're getting high energy and high damage per Incinerate. The drawback is it's Talonflame, which is a little glassy in Great League, and it's a 5-turn fast move, which I talked about the full repercussions of that when in my super long 70-minute video, talking about how in 5-turn fast moves, in general, if you're playing against people who are newer to the game or don't know how to optimize properly, you're probably just going to want to run Talonflame a lot because you're going to maximize that. You're going to maximize that 5-turn fast move more likely than you will if you're against like people who are statistically legends and know all the ins and outs of fast move optimization stuff. Because then if you're running a fast move, 5-turn fast move, if your opponent knows how to like time their fast moves properly, it's easier to catch on a 5-turn fast move. There's a lot of issues with a 5-turn fast move. So the Talonflame, how strong it's going to be in this Great League depends on how you can maximize this 5-turn move and the increased damage. And 2, does this mean we are just going to see an increase in Lanterns? Are we going to see an increase in Carbinks, right? Carbink is going to be just such a hard wall to this. Are we just going to see Carbinks increase tons? I don't know. So with that, if you're going to run this Carbink, Rock, double weak to Rock, Fire, Flying, being double weak to Rock, you need to run at least 1, maybe 2 Rock answers, and Water, right? Water being your other biggest one are the 2 that you really need to look out for. Electric too, but that can kind of go. There's not a ton of like pure electric. So that is why I put in Superior. Superior still, some people think Superior is going to fall because, oh, Talonflame is going to be everywhere. And then I look at it and I'm just like, is it though? Because like with Talonflame being everywhere, that means Lantern's going to be everywhere. Azumarill's on one of these because Azumarill's going to get bumped. Azumarill's going to be everywhere. You're probably going to get less Ace Sandslash, which was one of the hardest, even though Ace Sandslash is on this team. That was one of the hardest answers before. It's going to be less. So I think Superior is actually probably going to have still a lot of play in this league. If you're going to run Talonflame and Superior together, your biggest problem is going to be Dragon. And I've already gone, if you watched my video yesterday about anti-meta, I think Dragons are going to see a huge rise in this, right? Because Ace Sandslash, I think, is going to get nerfed. You're going to see more Lanterns. You're going to see more Grass, like answers to that. And you're going to see more Fire. And all those things are going to lose to Dragon. So that's why I think Dragon's going to see a rise. So you need to kind of cover that weakness, which is why I put in Ace Sandslash in the back. You can use, like, the only problem with this team is there's no real great safe swap on this team, right? Because Talonflame can just get destroyed by Carbink. I think Superior is probably your best safe swap. Although if we see an increase in like Talonflames and Fires, then it's going to be risky. You are double weak to Fire in the back too. But Ace Sandslash is also weak to like fighting Medi. So just actually seeing that double weakness to Fire. It depends how much of a Fire increase you see. If you want to be a little more safe and not have a double weakness to Fire, but you still want that ice coverage for Dragons, use Walrein instead. Walrein, Dewgong, right? Having that secondary water typing instead of Steel allows you to neutralize the Fire. So if you're seeing a ton of Fire, I would just replace Sandslash with Dewgong or Walrein. So that is Talonflame. I expect to see a healthy dose of Talonflame early because I think everyone is very excited to try that Incinerate boost. I also expect a heavy dose of Lantern to answer it and Azumarill to answer it. So team number 2, speaking about Lantern, right? So I started with Toxicroak. Toxicroak now has access to Shadow Ball. It's a very, very nice coverage move. Counter which is always great on Toxicroak, plus Mud Bomb is a nice combo. And then your other secondary typing is Poison, and that's why you had Sludge Bomb before. You're now getting Shadow Ball, which is non-stab, but it's, I think, better coverage. Because against most things that you had trouble with counter with, like Ghost, Psychic, you now have a super effective move in the back for those, right? And Mud Bomb should be generally okay. So what's your biggest weakness? So you have a weakness to, I think the biggest weakness you need to cover is flying, right? So if you're going to be weak to flyers, you're weak to a few other things. You're weak to ground and psychic and stuff like that. But that is why I comboed it with just 2. Toxicroak's very glassy in the Great League. So that is why I comboed it with 2 bulky, 2 generally safe Pokemon in Lickitung and Lantern. Lickitung I still think is going to be a great safe swap. And then Lantern obviously will deal with the majority of flyers outside of Gligar. But between, you're still taking resisted from the wing attacks. So now it's just a Dig versus Surf matchup there. So that's kind of evenish. And then, yeah, so as you're seeing the ratings, like I said, PvPoke is not updating this till later. So you're seeing like 2 losses against Steelix. I think Steelix is going to be taken down substantially. So I'm not worried about like those matchups, sort of say, right? I'm just focused on what is in the current meta with what I expect in the future meta. Sorry. So that is Toxicroak, right? Just cover your main like flyer weakness. You do have a double weakness to ground in Toxicroak, and Lantern are both weak to ground. But I think with the ground Pokemon, like there's like Diggersby, which is ground, which you can cover with Toxicroak counters. There's like the main one being like Gligar, but you can like kind of combo that with Surf. So I think there's ways you can get around the double weakness to ground. Vigoroth. So I just put in Vigoroth with Rock Slide, and it's gonna basically act the same, right? You can't. What the Rock Slide does is just give you a very nice coverage move that you would otherwise have trouble with before, right? You're still Vigoroth, you're still spammy with counters, spammy with Body Slam, and you're a bit glassy and weak to fighting, right? That the majority of Vigoroth does not change. What only changes is you now have a nice cover move for flyers, which you otherwise did not have before. So that is nice. That being said, it doesn't. I think it improves Vigoroth a bit. It doesn't change its place in the Open Great League a ton. So I was like, okay, what am I going to be my problems? Fighters, right? You're weak to fighting, so Gligar to deal with the fighters. And I was looking for a third, and they recommended a bunch because you're still weak to like Mandibuzz, Pelipper, Sableye, Crafty, or Cresselia. So you're still weak to a lot. So they recommended Registeel, and I'm like, okay, this in theory makes sense, right? You have Registeel or Vigoroth that can act as your safe swap to try and draw out a fighter. I know. The only problem is Registeel has more weaknesses than fighting, right? It has water and stuff like that. So if you want to do a true ABB, find another like normal typing, like Lickitung or something. I just think that Registeel for the flyers is actually probably better. So you draw out a fighter with one of the 2. Gligar will beat that, and then the other one should roam free. What I like about Vigoroth and Registeel is that they're both pretty good safe swaps in this meta, so I'm not too worried about them. But yeah, that is how I would use Vigoroth. You can just build any team around Vigoroth. If you're going to use Vigoroth as like the pure safe swap, then you can realistically build any sort of balanced team around it. Just be aware that it's like, yes, it's getting Rock Slide, but it doesn't move back up into like that super safe swap role. Like it's definitely a great safe swap in limited cups where it's just like there's certain Pokemon banned. But if you're looking for like a pure safe swap in Open Great League, I'm still taking like Medi will drop off because it's not a pure safe swap anymore. Like I would reuse Medi more of like a specialist fighter. But if you're looking for like pure safe swaps, it's still going to be Lickitung. It's still going to be Gligar. It's still going to be maybe Sableye to a certain extent, right? So I think the safe swaps as you see here with Lickitung, as I think this is the second time Lickitung showed up, I think it's just still generally very safe as a safe swap, as opposed to like Vigoroth, which can be just taken down a little quicker. Poliwrath. So put in Shadow Poliwrath, and I put it in with Counter and Icy Wind, because if you're using the Shadow, Counter and Ice Punch was a recommended moveset. Just replace Ice Punch with Icy Wind to lower your opponent's attack. As you can see, like, I was actually surprised how safe this is, but I guess it makes sense because your main weakness is going to be flyers, and grass, which you now have an Icy Wind for, right? Which is a nice coverage move there. So Poliwrath can actually be kind of safe, and there's no like real pure psychics. Like if you're in the lower range, maybe there's more Hypnos, and that would suck. But there's not a lot of like pure psychic Pokemon in this where their like fast move is Confusion. I guess you are also weak to Fairy, so Charm users will be a bit of an issue there. So again, Lickitung, and this is kind of like just balanced team. I'm basically replacing Swampert with Poliwrath and using that Swampert A9 core, where A9 is going to cover all your like flying weakness and grass weakness. But again, you're not just weak to grass like Swampert is. You're also weak to flying, which A9 covers, but you're also weak to psychic and fairy, right? So those can get a little bit tricky, especially if you have like a mirror match. So I'm running Powder Snow on this A9 just because you need it for the grass coverage. But if you get like a Charm A9 or Wiggly's not bad, but if you get like a Charm A9 which also resists your Powder Snows, then this matchup is going to get a little tricky here. And then Lickitung as a safe swap, doesn't need too much explanation there. So speaking about Wiggly as a Charm user, this is on the one shield, and this is actually surprising to me that even in the one shield, I would expect that Registeel or that Galarian Stunfisk to be filled in, being like you're just gonna get killed. And there's no, I'm looking on the list, I don't see any poisons. Like I expect to see Toxapex. I expect to see a big rise in Toxapex. If you're seeing more Azumarill and Wigglies and Talonflames, I would expect Toxapex to see a big increase as something that we can resist Fairy and hit super effective against Fairy and hit super effective against Talonflame with Brine. So just be aware of that if you're going to run Wiggly. But outside of that, so that and Steals is your main thing you need to deal with. So Swampert makes sense, right? Deal with all the Steals, hitting super effective with Mudshot Earthquake, deals with the poisons, hitting super effective with Earthquake, plus Hydro Cannon is just such a good move in general. Where this team falters is if you're running a Charm, Wigglytuff, and a water Pokemon that is double weak to grass, something like a grass poison like Venusaur is going to cause you some problems. So hello, one of the what is going to be not so subtle, surprising safe swaps, not safe swaps, but anti-meta picks is Dragons, right? I expect to see a lot more Dragons, Dragalge, Dragonite, Dragonair, Guzzlord. I expect to see a ton more of these Pokemon, given that you're going to see more like just Mud Boys, Swamperts, Whiscash, Poliwrath. Well, Poliwrath has Icy Wind, so that's not totally true. But like Superior, Lantern, Talonflame, like hello Dragonite, hello Dragons in general can be so good. So that is why I put that in as a third. So I don't care what the matchups say right now. I think that it's going to be a big increase in Dragons this season. I think they're going to be quite strong. Okay, so a few more teams using a few more of these Pokemon. I guess this is a combo here. Did I do... let me just see if I put Whiscash in twice. No, I guess I put in Whiscash. Double new team. Skarmory and Whiscash on this team, right? So Skarmory with Steel Wing. When it first came out, I sort of underestimated how strong Steel Wing is going to be. And then I kind of ran the simulations and then ran yesterday morning on the which move to use. And Steel Wing Skarmory picks up so many matchups as a 2-turn fast move for starters. That is also just same energy generation, but more damage. And now hitting super effective against stuff like Carbink and Frostlass and stuff like that. So it's a big upgrade for Skarmory. Of course, with that big upgrade, the meta. What is the meta going to be? I have mentioned multiple times now. Talonflame. I've mentioned Lantern. Right? These Pokemon are still going to kill you. There's still going to be some steals like Registeel and some other steals like that where you have nothing to throw against those steals. That is going to be a problem. So if you need to cover those weaknesses, I cover those weaknesses with Whiscash, with like Mud Bomb and Scald. You can still use Blizzard if you want. I don't think you need Blizzard if Skarmory is going to be your main answer to basically other flyers realistically, except for Talonflame. I'd rather have Scald on Whiscash for Talonflame. And then Grass, which Skarmory should, even with Steel Wing, should deal with grass. And then Sableye is your safe swap. I still think Sableye is just generally going to be safe. I said the only way Sableye is not safe is if for some reason Medi falls off the face of the earth, which I don't expect it to, which leads to an increase in Lickitungs and Carbinks to a certain extent. So if Lickitung Carbink comes out a bunch more, maybe Sableye is a little less safe as a safe swap, or more fairies, but I don't expect that. So that is why I think Sableye is still a good safe swap. But Skarmory is definitely one I'm going to try. So I'm going to try all these Pokemon. I will give you here's the thing. As we know, if you made it this far in the video, for those of you who are new to this channel or just joined recently, I have a full-time career job. This is my side job, side hobby job at this point. I have a full-time job, 9-to-5 job. I also have 2 young kids, an almost 5-year-old and a 2-year-old. So I shoot my videos basically at 9 p.m. at night. So sometimes I'm able to do like 2 a night. Other times I'm only able to do 1. So I will eventually cover all these Pokemon, but I've created a series called Beyond the Hype, because basically all these other content creators are going to put out like 2 to 3 videos a day for the first like 3 days. So basically every single one of these new Pokemon will have a video out within the first like 2 or 3 days with these new content creators. I created Beyond the Hype because 1, I can't put them out that fast, and 2, it gives you I created it because a lot of these content creators, like no shade at them, because it's kind of the YouTube game, but a lot of them just want to create hype to get you to click on it. But then they'll give kind of like a false impression of how good the Pokemon is. So I created a more in-depth analysis of like, okay, here's the new move, here's its strengths and weaknesses, here's how it actually plays, is it good or not, to give you a Beyond the Hype analysis. So I do plan to do every single one of these Pokemon. It's not going to be as fast as others may pump it out. But if you would like a full analysis of it, please try to check back here. What is old is new again. Bubble rebuffed. It was Azumarill rank 1 for 6 seasons, 7 seasons. It was rank 1, and then they nerfed Bubble, and then other things like Trevenant and stuff came in to beat it. But it got re-nerfed, it got rebuffed again with Bubble. So Bubble is back up in damage. How you want to play Azumarill depends how you want to play it. You can run Ice Beam you can run a combo of all 3. Ice Beam Play Rough Hydro, or Ice Beam Hydro. I think the best combo, it depends how you want to play it. If you want to play it on the lead, I think which I have here, Ice Beam Play Rough is the way to go. If you want to run it in the back, I would probably run Play Rough Hydro. I think you need that Play Rough for Lantern. Like, you're going to lose that matchup anyways, but I think you need to be able to throw something at Lantern. So I'd probably always run Play Rough. It's just whether I'm running it with Hydro in the back for steel coverage, or I'm running Ice Beam for just quicker, just like flyer, just general coverage there. But then you won't be able to throw anything at steals if you run Ice Beam Play Rough. Speaking about what's old is new, I just need another sort of... So I put in actually first Escav, because if you're going to be weak to poison everywhere, right? I expect an uptick in, like I said, Toxapex. So I expect that uptick in poison there, and expect a bunch of Lantern. So you need something to combo that. So I think Escav is a really nice user there, because you'll resist the poison and you'll hit super effective with the drill runs on the poisons and on Lantern. So it's a nice combo there. And then you need a third. You're depending on what you're running, you're maybe a little weak to flyers here, a little weak to like flyers with Escav. Yeah. I put in Umbreon as just like not a safe swap, because it's not as safe as it once was, but it's generally just still a bulky Pokemon that can deal with the majority of things in the meta. Carbink obviously being the one that you're just going to get kind of killed on. Not much you can do there, but I still think it's just generally a strong Pokemon to use. And Umbreon Azumarill combo was very, very, very popular back in the day. Okay, last one. Ninetales. Wait. Is there sorry, one sec. Is there another one I forgot to put in? Oh no, sorry. Last one. Ninetales. The problem with Ninetales, I'm very, very happy they buffed Fire Spin. I think if you watch my which move to use video that I put out yesterday morning, I said that I really am not ever going to run right now with the stats. I'm not going to run Ember, Weather Ball, Scorching Sands. I am only ever going to use Fire Spin, Weather Ball, Overheat. I think Overheat, Weather Ball, Fire Spin combo is far superior to Ember and Scorching Sand combo right now with the buff. Problem is, rock with Carbink, you have nothing, and there is a ton of water. Lantern, Swampert, Pelipper, Clodsire is even tricky if it's because it's the ground, right? You're weak to ground, you're weak to rock, you're weak to ground, rock, water. So there's a lot of weaknesses, especially in the top meta. Quagsire, and a lot of people are going to use the new Whiscash. There's a lot of things you're weak to. So you need to try and cover all those weaknesses, which is tough to do. So I put in Meganium. I think it's just the obvious one. Grass, super effective against rock, super effective against water, super effective against ground, right? So Meganium or Superior or Grass makes sense as the option there. The problem with this is, much like one of the earlier teams that I mentioned, Fire and Grass. Oh yeah, the Talonflame team. Much like the Talonflame team, you have a problem with dragons. Now, again, who knows how many dragons are going to be. So I put in Crest with access to Moonblast, just generally safe Pokemon, access to Moonblast. Where you're going to have also problems with this team is something like Charizard, right? Because you'll have basically only resisted moves on Ninetales. You're going to get only resisted moves on Meganium, and then Crest only resisted charge moves. So huge Charizard weakness if you're going to run this team. So if you don't want to do that, I think you can. The problem is, like, the Grass is the best way to cover all of your weaknesses. If you don't want to do Grass, you can do something like just try and mirror it with like something like Swampert with water, right? Because you'll be able to take out the Carbink, rock, you'll be able to take out the grounds, and you'll be able to just be okay in the mirror matches with other mud boys. So I think that, although, and you'll beat Lantern, but then like something like Poliwrath will be an issue. So that's the only drawback there. Or you just run Future Sight and Crest, right? I run it with Grass, not in Moonblast, but you can most definitely just run it with Moonblast and Future Sight, and have Crest with Future Sight is going to do great against Charizard. So that is how you deal with that issue. Anyways, that is team options for this. There is also a Retro Cup, so I will do Retro Cup teams this afternoon. Probably just looking at old teams because the rankings aren't up. Actually, I can pull up rankings on PvPoke. The new rankings aren't up though, and I think most people are going to play open. I'll put the team up just because people may want it, but I would expect pretty much everyone to play Open Great League and test a lot of these Pokemon out. So like I said, I will test a lot of these Pokemon out. So be sure to check back in on those this week for sure. And that's it. So thank you for... I feel like this video has only been 25 minutes. I feel like I need to talk for another like 40 because people are enjoying the long form videos. But we will see. We will see if I can make some more long form videos. But anyways, that's it. Thanks for watching. I'll see you guys in the next one.